I hope you all I hope you all are excited for a fun class today. I'm Tabitha. My business is called McHarper Manor, and we are going to create just some really fun little note cards that are going to be just something you can send out to somebody really easily. May look backwards for you, but this one says you're one in a melon, and this one says hello there. So we're definitely going to start with this cute little watermelon card, but we may make it through to this guy. We may switch it up and do a prickly pear. We'll just see where the evening takes us. But I wanted to talk about the supplies that we're going to need. We are going to start with some cardstock. I have Derwent's smooth watercolor paper. You can use that. You could use cardstock as well. Just something that's going to hold the weight of any water that we put on these items to get this really cool little graphic. All right. We're going to draw these out. We're going to draw them out with pencil. And then I'm also going to use a liner pen, a waterproof liner pen. I'm going to use that for things like my lettering. I'm also going to use that for these little seeds on the melon. The other things, I included a bone folder to make your cards with. If you don't have a bone folder, the side of your finger will do. These are great if you really like to make cards, just something with like a curved, smooth kind of edge. It just helps you crease that out. All right. Paper trimmer was also on the list. You don't have to have one. It's just great if you do have one because you get these perfect straight lines. My paper trimmer is a little bit bigger than my space, so I already went and trimmed mine down ahead of time. I have them sized at 8 by 10 and 5 by 8, but whatever sizes you would like to use is going to be totally fine too. So that is what we're going to use for the surface. For my drawing, my watercolor stuff, I'm going to use these Derwent Inktense pencils, which are amazing. The coolest thing about Derwent Inktense pencils is that they are watercolor pencils. They are water soluble, so you can use them on paper. You can use them on any porous surface that you would like. When you activate them with the water, they spread around like a watercolor, so you get these really nice gradients, but you also have the added bonus that it's permanent. So if you're doing it on something like wood or something like that, it always gives you a product that you don't have to seal after unless you really want to because it's permanent. So I appreciate that. It's one less thing for me to worry about. But you can blend them too, like you could with any colored pencil. So you get the benefit of being able to blend the things with these pencils, and you also get the nice, soft, almost whimsical look of watercolor. So it's kind of the best of both worlds for me. I have been intimidated by watercolor at points in my life, and I feel like these pencils, anybody can do it. Anybody can use colored pencils. Most people aren't intimidated to do like a coloring book or a drawing with colored pencil. So for me, that's a really awesome entry point into the world of watercolor. And you can use these pencils for that and get those same looks. So it's great for things that you want precision. If you want like a nice, striking line around the outside of the rind of this little watermelon, it's perfect to use the pencil for. Cool things like that. So they are Derwent Inktense pencils. And you can grab them at Michael's. They have the big sets as well. I think they have several sizes of sets. The 12-piece set is like your entry point, and I think they're pretty handy to just throw in your bag and take with you when you go. So we'll start with these. If you don't have these pencils, you can also draw along with us and use watercolors. If you guys have done any classes with me before, you've probably seen the Inktense pan that I use, which is just a watercolor pan. I love this. It's my favorite watercolor pan that I own. I use it for everything. So these are going to be great. You can still get in and do all those details. You might just have to use a finer line brush to get around that. I'm using the Derwent clickable water brush today. Those you can get in a set with different sizes. I'm using the medium point one, and that's just going to be to smooth everything around. So that's my supply list for today. If you want to use a regular brush, that's fine as well. Any of those will work. These pans even come with a water brush, so you can use that too. But let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with our smaller piece of cardstock or watercolor paper, whichever you have available to you. I have this one sized at 5 by 8. So 5 inches across, 8 tall is going to give me a nice 5 by 4 card. And when you line up the corners there and just kind of make a little crease, that's where you can take this nice little bone folder and you can go in and really smooth him across. And what's nice about that is you don't get those big wrinkles in the back. You know, greeting cards are so expensive. We were just talking about that before the video started, is how expensive some of these greeting cards can be. And it's so nice to be able to send a paper card that you didn't have to pay $8 for. So I am a fan. So we will just make this simple, fun little one that you could send to anybody on your list. I like 5 by 8 size personally on my sheet because it'll usually fit in one of those small note card envelopes. If you buy like note cards from the dollar store or something, you can put them in those envelopes. I'm sure you can also buy just packs of envelopes as well, but this is a pretty standard size. On our other one, I did an 8 by 10, which is going to make it, you know, it's going to make it 5 inches wide by 8 inches long. And that may not be a standard one. That might be one that you throw into a gift bag. So, all right. So for this, I never really draw with mine doubled over. I like to open it up and work with it on the flat on the surface like this. It just helps me to pre-fold it so that I keep everything within the margins that I want to have it in. If it's like this, you're like, oh, it's always lifting up. And if you've got runny watercolor, it's just going to kind of run off to the side. So I like to keep it spread out flat like that. So to start our watermelon, we are going to, I'll sit this guy up to the side so you can see where we're going with him. We are going to start by just taking a straight line across. And I'm going to do this a little tiny bit above the halfway mark. All right. And we'll just do a really soft line like that. And then we get the little watermelon arc down here at the bottom, which is an upside down rainbow. And I'll just lightly sketch that out with my pencil. And then if you want to take a bite out of your watermelon, you can do that with just some little scalloped edge things. So a little shallow rainbow next to another little shallow rainbow all the way around is going to make it look like little bite marks. Okay, that's cute if you want to do it. If not, it'll be just as cute without it. And you can erase that extra line there. All right, so basically that is the watermelon part. The rest of it we'll do with our pencils. As far as the lettering, everyone is so intimidated by lettering. I don't think that any of us really like our handwriting. I know that people compliment me on my handwriting all the time, and I'm like, really? I don't know. But just embrace the imperfections in your own handwriting, the bumps and quirkiness, really just make it look unique. And somebody loves your handwriting way more than you do. So just remember that. On this one, we're just going to space out this one in a melon. You don't need to get a ruler or anything to make sure that it's perfectly in a line. If you want to, you can. What you can do also really lightly is just take the edge of, you know, the paper that you trimmed or anything else that you've got in your arsenal with a straight edge, and you can just kind of line it up above where this melon is and make yourself just a really light line if you want to. Okay, nothing super fancy, and that'll help you keep everybody on the same plane. So for one in a melon, when I'm trying to line things up in the middle, I break it down by the number of letters. So one N is the same amount of letters as melon, you know, add a little space in, but the A is kind of going to be the center of my one in a melon part. However, I'm throwing this your in there, so I do want to scoot it over a smidge. So I'll put my A first. And for my letters, I'm just going to do regular font that's just with a really low cross beam. So if I have anything that's like the little line on an E or an A, anything that goes horizontal is just going to be a little bit lower to the bottom. Okay, that kind of makes it look cute and quirky too. So my A is going to be where I start with that. And then melon, my M is going to come down a little lower. And I'm just going to use all caps for this. So MEL. My O is going to be taller and skinny. And then my N will end it. Okay. And then my N, and then I'll go back the other way. I'll do my words backwards. Okay. So I'll go in, I'll start with the N because I can control where that space ends. So in, and then my one, I'll start with my E first. Give him kind of a low cross guy there. And I do this with pencil first in case I don't like the way something looks. And then I can go back over it with my black liner pen. All right, now the your is going to have to come up this way. My your is just a script, okay? So I just Y-O-U-R-E with a little apostrophe. All right, your one in a melon. Super easy, super cute. I'll start with the black on this and I'll go right over my pencil and then we'll let it dry a bit and then we'll erase out any of the extra graphite lines. So I'll go over the Y-O-U-R-E, your. And you could do fancier things if you wanted to do like a double line, if you wanted to come in through here and do like, you know, a double line on the outside of each of these letters, you could go through and do something that gives it like that shadowing through there. Double lines are cute, just on like the left side of everything. That would be a cute one to do. You really can decide what you would like to do. It's really up to you. We're going to go pretty static, easy breezy on this guy. But doing it with graphite first and then going over it with the pen is really the easiest way to ensure that it looks exactly the way you want it to. All right, so ta-da, you're one in a melon. Now we want to let that dry for a second. And then we'll go through and erase those graphite lines. If you want to thicken up anything in the cursive part, you can do that as well. You could also move on to the rest of it and come back and erase at the end. I'm always afraid I'll forget to erase at the end, so I like to do it as soon as I'm finished. And don't, you know, scrub the heck out of it. Just lightly go through. Nobody's really going to see those graphite lines. So just get the spots that are sticking out, that are peeking out beyond there. All right. So he's looking good. I might go through and thicken up the outside of this guy a little bit just to make him look a little more stylized. If you thicken up the outsides of just one side, it gives it a nice shadow. So on the R, I'll thicken up the outside and then the front of the E. And then make my little apostrophe a little thicker. All right. Now this cutie patootie melon, I'm going to start with a pretty dark green. So I'm going to go with this teal green. I always save one of my pieces that I cut for my swatch for these. Derwent does a pretty good job of the color being similar to the tops, but what I think it's going to look like on paper isn't always the same. So I like to put a little swatch on there and say, is this the green I wanted? Or maybe, is this the green I wanted? And I'll look at them. And then the color that you get when they are dry is not always the same as the color you get when they're wet. So I'll take my pen, my water brush, and the nice thing about this is I can just click to load it. I'll go across there and see how it winds up. If that is, it's a little too teal for me. So I'm going to wash that off on my paper towel, and then I'll go with this green guy. I think that was definitely more in the neighborhood of where I was looking. So I'm going to go with the second green that I liked. If you're using a pan, you can start with just one line of your darkest green on a wet on dry. So you would just straight application on there. I'm going to sharpen this a little bit just to make sure it's nice and sharp. And I'm going to, this particular green that I use is called felt green. It's 1530 is the number on the Derwent pan. So felt green is what I decided. I'm going to take this all the way around this bottom edge. And it's going to be just a thick line. It's not going to be really super wide or anything, just one thick line. And I'm coloring on this just like I would color with colored pencil. Okay, easy back and forth strokes, nothing too hard or laborious. It's pretty cream. Well, I wouldn't call it creamy, but it goes on. It's a smooth application. Okay. And then I'll blow my excess off there. Since it is just colored pencil for me, I can go around and erase that line now, because graphite, regardless how lightly we put it down, it will kind of smear with watercolor. So I like to either cover it up all the way or erase it out. So next to that green, I like to choose a lighter green, or even something that's going to be like a citrusy yellow. And then I smooth those together to make this nice gradient right here that you get. So I'm going to take another yellow and test it. And I don't think that's what I want to use. I think I'll try. I might even do them together. Let's see. I think I might have actually, I must have used the yellow last time with a little bit of the green next to it. So if I did a touch of the green and a touch of the yellow, let's see what that does when I activate it with water. And that is exactly what I did. So the yellow that I'm using is called Mustard. And the number on that one, or nope, I lied. That's not mustard. I switched them out. The yellow that I'm using is sherbet lemon. And then the green that I'm using is apple green. Apple green and sherbet lemon. We used felt green for the rind. So I'm going to take this apple green and I'm going to go right up against where I had the felt green and just do a light line next to that. Just one light line.
Tabitha, do you want to share with us what you prefer to use for lettering, and like how you, after you're tracing, what your next steps are again?
After tracing my letters out, so I'll use a pencil to write them out, and then after I write them out, I want to use a black waterproof liner pen. Derwent has a liner pen. I unfortunately just don't have it with me today, but just something that's like a pigment black solid waterproof pen. I like a felt tip, so something that has, just a hard tip that, some people like a gel pen. I just feel like I have more control with a liner pen, a felt tip. So I'll go through and I'll cover up my graphite that I drew my lettering with, and then I'll go back over and line it all out with that black pen. And then I could thicken up certain areas. Like if I want to go through and I want to make the, left side a little heavier, I can go through and do that afterwards on each one. Sometimes, it'll get a little wonky, but you have a lot of forgiveness with black block lettering. So I'll even everything out, but it gives you the ability with, just a liner pen after the graphite to go back through and thicken things up as needed. And you could double line, make things nice and heavy on one side. You just use your imagination and things that would make your lettering stand out. It doesn't have to be perfect. Some of my favorite lettering is lettering that kind of looks like haphazard. So, things that make it look a little more sketchy are fun too. So just play with it, and that liner pen, let it dry a little bit, and then go through and erase out any of the lines or things that you might have peeking out from behind your ink. All right, so yeah, we used the apple green in there, and that is going to be a nice line right up against that felt green, and those two together with this sherbet lemon is the next one that I'm using. That is going to be right up against that second green. And actually, I'm going to even go a tiny bit over it. I know it's kind of hard to see from down there, but I'm actually going to cover right on top of this green, on top of the second green, and that's going to help everything to blend nicely. The water will help that as well, but we're going to go right along this little green line. Now, if you're using watercolor paint, you can layer your watercolor. So you could do everything the same way I'm doing with a watercolor pan. With the Inktense pan, I would take like my first green with a fine liner brush and go around, and then I would mix up a second green, and then I'd take the citrus green and go over top of all of it, and you can layer and it'll blend just the same. So we'll add that little yellow part of the rind. Okay. Now, you want to leave a little gap of white. It may be hard to see in here, but there's like a tiny gap of white between this citrus color, the sherbet lemon, and the red. Okay. So I leave a little buffer there of white. There are some areas on mine where the yellow kind of seeps into it, but it gives us that nice like separation where an actual watermelon rind would be, you know, a little closer to white. And then we can go into our watermelon portion, which I'm going to test out some reds and see what we like. So there's poppy red, which is a really pretty bright red. That's the same red that's in the Inktense Pan as well. It's my favorite. And then we also have the hot red, and that one's just a little bit more of like a scarlet. The poppy red has like those orange tones to it, so I like both of those. And then there's also carmine pink. So I like all three of these, and I'll probably use two of them. So carmine pink would be like a great, really ruby red color if you wanted your watermelon that tone. And then we have the hot red and poppy red. So poppy red is always my favorite, but I think we're going to use a little bit of the carmine pink, and then we'll go into the poppy red. So I'll grab those two. And, you know, I hang on to these little pieces when I cut things down. These are tester. I love to swatch watercolor because you never really know how it's going to turn out. And also after you let it dry, you can see how many shades it goes down. A lot of watercolor will go down like 3 shades when it dries. I don't feel like the Inktense does. I feel like it still stays very vibrant. I would say it goes down maybe a shade after it's dry. So it's good to have that swatch just to kind of see how things pan out. So I'm going to start with my darker one, which is my carmine pink, and I'm going to leave that little white buffer there, and I'm going to go in and start with my pink. And if you were using a watercolor pan, you could start with your darker color, your deeper color as well. So I'm going to just follow this. We're mirroring everything the whole way around, leaving that nice little white buffer. If you get wild and crazy and get up too close to it, it's not the end of the world. And then I'm going to color in this guy probably about a 1/2 inch, maybe closer to an inch. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a little more pressure on the outside closest to the rind, and then use lighter pressure as I get towards the center. Okay, that's going to give us the ability to control our gradient a little bit more. We'll have more pigment closer towards the white, and then we can start to layer that second pink over top of this one.
One of the questions that we just got was referring to your comment about the colors going down and like getting lighter or darker. Could you expand on that a little bit more?
So when we use the brushes, the colors are going to kind of blend together. So we'll have, you know, our brush. Where's my brush? So when we use our brush, we're going to use this edge of our brush, and we're just going to kind of blend those out. We're going to use the darker as like our outside edge, and then it will kind of blend with the yellow that we've laid down. So we've laid down 3 colors of green. One's just like more in the yellow end of the spectrum. So when we add the water to that, it's going to lighten up. And then we're going to do the same thing with the watermelon, the actual pink melon portion inside, and we're going to layer this poppy red over top of the carmine pink. Is that what we were talking about?
Yeah, I think that was.
Okay.
I think some of the comments are describing it as somewhat of an ombre, which I think aligns a little bit with what you were saying.
Yeah, it really is. This is just, it's the gradient really is the way that we're taking this. We're just using a little bit more pressure on the outside of this. And then we're able to layer our second color, which is our poppy red, right over top of the edge of this. And as we do that, we're going to have that ombre effect as we go. But it's going to give us, you know, kind of a unique richness to that, to the carmine pink with the red that we wouldn't have gotten on its own. So we're just gonna lightly color with the poppy red from the center, and then we will take that all the way to the edge. All right, and just build on top of the carmine pink that we were using. If you don't have two colors, if you only have one, you can do this with pressure, okay? Yeah, so you can use your pressure and really control how much pigment that you lay down with these, okay? So this is the poppy, and this is the carmine. This is hot red that I didn't use. Okay, so I wanted to use these two colors. So if we did the poppy against the carmine, we get a totally different color by blending them. Do you see how we get this, the carmine pink next to the poppy red? That's what's going to give us those different colors as we move through this really cute little watermelon. So hope that helps. Last but not least, I want to erase my teeth lines. If I want them to stand out really well, I can go around them. My little teeth marks, my little bites. Okay. And then I'll erase those a bit. And then now is the fun part. We are going to take our brush or water brush, whatever you're using, and I'm going to start at the outside and I'm going to wet the edge and just pull that down through. And I'm just pulling it through the green. And then I'm going to wipe this off a little bit because I don't want to pull that dark green right into this side. I want to let it use its own pigment there. And I'm going to start back on this side and drag that through that side. All right. And that is what is going to give us that watercolor effect. Okay. So pulling that through. If you're using actual watercolors, you would already have this part going on. But that is what gives us that fun watercolor effect. If you feel like maybe it got a little too wet, like I pushed the button a little too hard there, you can always just kind of sop some of that up and put it on your paper towel. If you went a little wild and crazy like I did and got your yellow too close to your pink, no big deal. It's whimsical and fun. All right, but that softens it and it changes it, and look how much brighter it got, like instantly, super bright. The next step is going to be to do the same thing with the reds, the pink. And you're going to start at the top corner and just smooth it out. Okay, start at the top corner, smooth it down, and then go back up to this corner and smooth those lines out. Always turn your project instead of trying to like make your wrist do weird things. Turn your project, and if it's easier to drag towards you, turn your project to drag towards you. If it's easier for you to push the paint away, then push it, but just turn your project in whatever way works for you. I'm just gonna keep moving that back and forth. And then I'm going to rinse my brush off because I do want it to get a little lighter in the middle for me. So I'm gonna not keep building the darker from the outside, rubbing it into the center. I'm gonna pull that off a little bit and wipe it off on my brush, pull that pigment off, and then move on to where I did my interior colors. And that way it smooths it out for you. And you can see how lighter it is and that ombre effect that you guys were talking about. There we go. So you can see how instantly that changes the whole look of it. I mean, you could potentially do this with colored pencils, but I really think the sweetness of this little melon is really enhanced by the smooth watercolor, the gradient, and just the way that it all goes together here. I'm going to clean up some of my lines a little bit. And then I'm going to set him to the side. I know we don't have seeds on him yet, but I want to let this dry before I draw on top of it. And so we will play around and create this second card while we let this first guy dry. Okay. So instead of the aloe, I think we might do a little prickly pear, because the aloe, I feel like, is one that you can do really easily. It's just little, triangle shapes. If you can do the prickly pear, you can do the aloe. They're going to be very, very similar technique. So we'll show even another variation of how to do it. Instead of saying aloe there, he will say, I'm rooting for you. I think that one will be super cute too. I'll put him right here so that you can see him too as we cruise through this one. All right, so my swatch card is coming over here for a minute, and we are going to go back to the bone folder and fold this guy in half. I want him to be a long, tall card, maybe one that you give somebody for, that would be a cute graduation card or something that you put money in. I don't know. I love to get a card with money. So a tall one seems fun to me. I'm going to do it horizontal and then fold it over. So the 10-inch wide becomes a 5-inch surface. So make my preliminary little fold, line everybody up, and then I will use my bone folder straight edge to give it a nice crisp seam. And there we go. So this one will open pretty nicely, be a nice tall one, and we'll work on this side. For this one with the aloe there, it's the little, arc guy. There are so many ways that you can trace out a little arc for yourself. Like a drinking glass, you can just, mark along the edge of it if you're concerned that you might have, wobbly lines. Or you can be like me and you can just eyeball it. And I just make a really shallow little rainbow. And I follow that line. Okay, so little shallow rainbow. I do it really light, so it's going to be hard for you guys to see. So I hope that you can see the, intention there. And I just want to even it out. Sometimes if I'm looking at it and I think it feels like it's, not exactly right, turning it over really helps me to see like, whoa, I was crazy on the left side. So So I'm rooting for you. I would write that out first because, again, I always like to do it, find my center. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. All right, so I do have a nice center here, which is probably going to be like this N if we're talking about spaces. So I'll leave a little bit of space for the end of rooting, and then I'll start with 4. So 4 would be, if we're going to do cursive on this one, I'll just do a cursive 4, and then my U. So you guys can see, like, my handwriting is nothing fancy when I do it in pencil. It's all in the pen, like when I go back over it. And then I'll go, I think I'll just leave my eye just a regular, or you could even do half of it like the I'm. So you could do a cursive I'm, and then rooting could be, stark as well. So you could do like I'm with like caps rooting and then the script for you. You can switch it around and do whatever you would like. But I'm going to make mine just all script. All right. So I'm not in love with how that O and that T end up. So what I'm going to do is drop those and then make a new T right there. And you can always do that with script too. Like you can drop a letter if the O and the T together don't do anything for you, then drop it and start over, restart your letters again. So I'm rooting for you. Yay, he's cute. The spacing works out. Now I'm going to go through with my pen, and that's when I will fix anything up. If I feel like my eye is a little too close to the seam, which I kind of do, I might move him over a little bit. So I like that better. So we will put it in pen. Now on my script, I like to make one side heavier. So what I do is I outline that side. Okay. I just do one extra stroke next to it. So the left side of mine is heavier. And then on my down strokes, I'm a little heavier. Okay. So I'm just thickening that up on my down strokes. So if you were writing when you go down, anything that's a down, so if that goes down, I'm going to thicken that up. Okay. And then on the M, down, down, I'll thicken those up. Okay. Whatever goes on the downstroke, that is faux brush calligraphy there. So rooting, I can put that little twist in there. There's my downstroke. So I can thicken him up. O, O. So the downstrokes on these are going to be a little tricky because it depends on exactly where you started your O. If you picked up your pen or if you didn't, it really truthfully doesn't matter. Nobody's going to be picking your calligraphy apart. On that one, there's my downstroke. So I just thicken that up a little bit. Put a line through them. Downstroke. Thicken him up. There's another downstroke. And now sometimes if they're quick downstrokes, like on the N, I don't really do a whole lot to thicken them up because it gets too thick and too messy. So if you're in an area like that where you don't have a lot of room, don't stress about it. All right, so your downstroke on this one is going to be just a little thickening on the inside of the G and his bottom part there. Okay.
We have
you can
about
see-
15 minutes left. Just wanted to let
Okay.
you know.
Thank you, Grace. All right. So that's the I'm rooting. And then 4. And you guys can do whatever you like for your lettering. If this is not your jam, that is okay. If you wind up loving the lettering of it and you want to do that in brush as well, you can do that with these pencils too. I mean, it's totally your call. And we're going to start on this second card, but we definitely won't get through it. But you guys, I have so much faith in you. You can do whatever you like. We'll draw out the parameters for it, and you guys will bring it to life. All right, so we turned just basic script into a really cute, almost brush-like font. We used a lot of ink on these. On the insides and the downstrokes, we used a lot of ink. So we're gonna let that dry for a hot minute before we try to add anything to it. We can check real quick on our one in a melon, and he seems pretty dry. So we will go ahead and throw those little seeds in there for anybody that wants to put those in there. How I do the seeds is I just start up here and I do a raindrop and I leave a section of that raindrop open, okay? So this little raindrop, I leave just a tiny section open and then fill in the rest. And that gives it that little shine. So that is what it winds up looking like, okay? And then you can go through and do, you know, you can do them staggered. On this one, I did them all uniform. You could do, you know, one here, and kind of switch them up a little bit and stagger them through. Make it look a little less planned. Make it look more natural, I suppose. And that is just filled in with that black pen. And for me, I think I might just leave that one like that. I think that's plenty. All right. So that is the year one in a melon. So that guy's finished. So now that I'm rooting for you, we can get back to him with as much time as we have, and we will start with a pot. And so if we want to do a pot like this guy, I start with a little, like a little terracotta pot. I start with a rectangle, a long skinny rectangle. And then I just taper it down for my pot. Okay. And I'll just run it all the way to the bottom on that one. And you could have any color pot you wanted. If you wanted to do a terracotta like I did on this one, you could use the red oxide is a more brown warm color. So that one would be great for shadows and edges and things like that. And there's also the scarlet pink that's really nice blended with that one as well. So I like to run those together, and those give you like a really bright, cheerful kind of terracotta color. So that one is going to be a really warm, really bright terracotta color. Okay. Let's see. So if we did a, prickly pear, We could do those big oval shaped leaves on him. Okay. Some that come up here and some that come through right here. Okay, and we'll have like one big guy in the back. And this is a fun one that if you want it to like run off the page, you have another big guy here. And those, I mean, they just grow crazy wild. So just a little ovals that come off of him in all directions. And this guy could have a little one up here. Okay. So that could be a super cute little cactus guy. You can also take several different greens together for this. So depending on what type of green you're wanting, you can do, you know, you can use your swatch card from some of the other greens and you can see, is this in the neighborhood of what I want to use? Do I want to use some of these deeper, more earthy greens? The first green I used was the spring green and the second one was leaf green. So spring green is going to be a little bit brighter. I used that in this petal of the aloe guy over here. And then this one is more like an avocado-y, earthy green. So you can swatch those and see what you like. I find that the more you use different colors over top of each other, it gives you dimension. So I really like to use different greens together. I will probably roll with one of these deeper greens down here for this guy. And you don't have to cover 100% of your white area with these pencils. It's really nice to just be able to, you know, circle some of it in, and then you can work with that brush to smooth the rest. So again, as we were talking before, with it gets lighter as you go, with the ombre effect that you guys were mentioning on the watermelon, you can leave that to white there, and you can take your brush and you can go all the way around that and use your excess pigment from the edges all the way down through there, and you'll get to where you have just a wash in the middle, and it will be a built-in gradient for you. Okay, so that gives you a really nice way to have some variation, a little gradient in there. I know he's a little shiny from the water, but that helps to show what you can do. Say you're not in love with that color. Say you're like, ooh, I was hoping it would be a little brighter. You can wait till that dries and you can go back over with another green, a brighter green, and it'll be like you mixed a totally different green. So for these back here, I can do this brighter green. And just kind of circle these in a little bit. Give them a little bit of pigment around there. And we'll play. And this will show you how light you could actually do it as well. So this would be like a really quick, you know, really quick, soft attempt, a little contrast to what we did on the other one, where we were really intentional about every part that we filled in. And we can even leave it empty in the middle and then go back with my wet brush and fill this in and pull that pigment from the edges all the way to the center. So pushing along that edge where we were deepest and then pull it into the center. And with the water brush, I can just keep, adding water to it as I go. Otherwise, if you were using a pan or if you were using a regular brush, you'd have to re-wet your brush. But it's kind of like the speed demon of this product. So I can just take that and move it around, and you can see how much pigment you can get from laying down very little of the Inktense pencil. So yeah, you guys are able to go through and do, a wide area with a little bit of pigment. You can see how quickly that covers and how much area you really are able to produce your color for without having to spend a lot of laborious time. On this watermelon, I think it was really good to be intentional about filling in these precise areas just to get the effect that we wanted. But with something more open-ended like a plant, you really don't have to use as much of the color. I also wanted to show you how you can go back over with these pencils after it's dry, and you can give it more of this actual colored pencil look. You can create more strokes in and give it some texture. You can go back over while it's dry, and you don't have to reactivate it with water if you don't want to. So I think those are really unique ways to get different effects with these pencils. I love the versatility of the pencils just because, you really can decide what gets that watercolor look and what doesn't. It's a great entry, dip your toes in way to explore watercolor, especially if the idea of puddles of water moving around on your paper intimidates you. Sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. So I think that this is a great way for anybody to use a really fun medium and really get to, enjoy that. For the little spines on the little pokey cactus guy, I would wait until this dries, and I would take, I think he's about dry enough. I would take my black liner pen and I like to do just some little V's through there. You could do single little pokey guys, single ones, or you could do, I like these, but they're a little more cartoony to me. So cute, whatever you like. Okay, I kind of like to do the V's. I think they're a little more cartoony, whimsical. So those make it look like a cute spiky plant. Can you Mod Podge it? You totally can, but you don't have to because this is permanent as soon as it's dry. So I hope you guys had fun making these little note cards with me. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram at McHarper Manor. I love making practical art, things that you can use and things that are going to be something that is going to save you money in the long run, but isn't, something that you're going to have to hang on a wall or throw away. These can actually be used and sent to people and really appreciated. So I hope you guys had fun with me. I hope to make more art with you. Thank you so much, Derwent and Michaels, for having me do this class with you guys.